Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Oliver Dale, Managing Director of Safety Revolution. I'll be chairing this session. Let me first apologise for the sound quality at my end. I'm only chairing this session. This is led by my colleague, Mia Banbury, who I will hand over to in a few moments. Just a way of description for myself, an introduction. I'm a farmer's son from St Ives in Cheshire. Prior to becoming MD of Safety Revolution, I was farming with a family farm for 10 years. I then established Safety Revolution, specialising in farms and estates market, and I'm a qualified chartered safety and as a business and personally we advise exclusively on farms and estates. So we'll be happy to take any technical questions or any questions at all later in this session. And in the meantime, my colleague Mia Banbury, who works closely with me and again is a qualified safety practitioner, to show you and take you through the demonstration and the webinar today. So Mia, if I may, I will hand over to you.
Brilliant. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope that you can all hear me well enough. So just a little bit of just an informational point here. There is a Q&A section in your menu. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please type them into there. We have a questions section at the end of the session and we'll endeavour to get through your questions at that point. So first and foremost, Oliver's just giving you a little bit of background into himself and his role in Safety Revolution. But Safety Revolution is the UK's leading health and safety specialist for farms, estates and agri-businesses. What that means is we primarily work within the rural businesses. So we're experts in what we do. We understand exactly what people are facing day in, day out in the rural industries, and we apply our health and safety knowledge and make that applicable to what you're seeing. Our overall aim is to raise the industry standards of health and safety, and thereby obviously reducing risk of injury and fatalities to workers, but also keeping the business from a risk perception safe as well. We started the company in 2003, an insurance broker and a farmer being Oliver Dale, who were concerned about agriculture's poor record on health and safety. As we know, that record hasn't much improved, and we're continuing to try and create a safer environment for rural workers. Today, we work with hundreds of rural businesses across the country. We are UK-wide, so we work right up into Scotland, across to Wales and down into the south as well, with regional based consultants. We provide a comprehensive system that delivers robust health and safety management in a simple structure. So what we try to do is we try to avoid the jargon, and we instead look to help individuals by making sure we really identify their liabilities and weaknesses initially, and we provide concise and simple action plans so that you as users can see exactly where there's an issue and what you can do to rectify that to create a safer environment. Why is it important? Why do we feel what we do is important? As mentioned, the agricultural sector has a very poor accident rate in the UK, and it's actually the highest across all industries, up to 8 times higher than construction even. So although there's less people working in agriculture, we have a higher fatality rate. That, of course, isn't great for anybody, and it's something that we take very seriously. So the first and foremost point to do is to try and prevent accidents, including ill health, to employees in the rural industries. I mentioned ill health there as well, because often when we think of accidents, we're thinking about broken bones or contact with PTOs, livestock, etc. What we also have to remember is there's lots of substances that we work with that can cause ill health to the body, but we also have to consider mental health as part of health and safety as well. We understand the importance of creating a system for the rural industry, whichever that may be, whether it's a farm, whether that's an estate or a mixed business, and making sure that that fits with the needs of that business. So it's not just about looking at, what would be easy to fit in everywhere else. It's about what fits with your team, how we can work with you to work with your team. So sometimes that's in staff meetings or integrating it with other systems that you're working with. And so as part of our service, we look at bespoke and integrated systems. And that also means we can increase engagement with the team, because it allows them to have a say sometimes in what's going on, maybe air some of their concerns or grievances, and therefore we can tackle issues head on that you managers, owners and directors are facing day in, day out. What we do know is business owners understand the need for health and safety, and sometimes what the difficulty is finding where to start. So more often than not, we have people coming to us and they just, it's a big job, there's lots to do, and the knowledge isn't necessarily there for where to start. So we like to come in at that point and be able to give clear, concise guidance and help a business move forward and create a health and safety culture that protects people and protects livelihoods. Our overarching objective is to reduce the risk of injury or death where we are actively involved in supporting a client. We always try to work positively, constructively, and with the highest standards of professionalism. We know that clients guard their privacy closely and value discretion, and we absolutely guard those principles as our own. So we're working with you closely, but we're never spreading or sharing any information or details. So privacy and confidentiality is one of our highest values. So safety revolution, our core safety service, what we describe for the health and safety side of things, is usually delivered over a 3-year period. You will be given a designated consultant, so that's your first point of contact, and they will be working with you for that period of time. Initially, we start with what we describe as a primary audit, and this generally consists of a Q&A session, which can feel quite hard work. There's lots of questions to go through, and what we're doing at that point is really trying to find a baseline of where you're at, what you've done previously, what you're looking to achieve, and that gives us an idea of where to start from. That's the second part of that primary audit, is then a physical walk round of any of your working areas, multiple sites if you have them, anywhere where staff are going to be working. And from that, we then create a report and an action plan. And this comes in the form traditionally of a paper file, which many of you may be familiar with, depending on what systems you've got in place at the moment. But actually now moving forward onto the paperless system, which we'll be chatting through a bit later. So the action plan is, as we mentioned before, really concise. So it details exactly in bullet points what the findings were, and therefore what the corrective action is for you to begin to work through it. Throughout that 3-year period, there's ongoing support and guidance from your consultant. And equally, we also arrange for annual reviews and regular meetings as well. And what we find is that's really important. I often get people say to me, it's great, I like to know when you're coming. It gives me a chance to, it spurs me on to get something done. Whereas we all know everybody's very busy, and it's something that they then know they need to prioritize because they're getting a visit soon, and that helps them to keep moving forwards with the health and safety actions. Those meetings can be a mixture of things. Obviously, the annual review is really important. It helps you to make sure that your document's staying up to date. It is getting reviewed. It is getting looked at. And it also helps us to identify what actions you have taken, which is always really good. So there's a nice feel-good factor in there saying, yes, we've made these steps forward over the last year. But it also then helps us to prioritise what the next year's actions are and what is necessarily to keep moving forwards. Are there any updates to legislation? Is there any changes to the businesses that then might prompt us to have different actions coming to the forefront? And equally, the other meetings can be to come and show us something specific, to help you with a staff meeting. So we help to facilitate those conversations within that 3-year period. So that 3-year period, particularly initially, generally takes people from where they're at, the line in the sand of that primary audit, pushing them on 3 years, trying to get through some of the compliance pieces and pushing on towards best practice. And we usually see quite a significant change in the culture of a business from year 1 to year 3. But of course, there's always more we can do to keep people safe. At Safety Revolution, we also offer a number of other services, all linking, of course, in with the safety system. These are fire risk assessments. A fire risk assessment is a legally required risk assessment, and it's usually very important, particularly if you have any high risk areas such as workshops, fuel stores, anywhere anybody's sleeping. So it can be a really important document for compliance, and it's not one to be overlooked. There's a lot of talk around fire risk and fire safety following Grenfell, so it's an important one to flag that's needed in many, many circumstances. A disease risk assessment is one not many people have always heard of, but it's one that we see get picked up regularly on HSE inspections as not having a disease risk assessment. So DESIR is the Dangerous Substances and Explosive Atmospheres Regulations. And again, similar to your fire risk assessment, it is a compliance document. So if you have any of those, any DESIR substances, you should also have a DESIR risk assessment. Traffic risk assessments, again, a standalone risk assessment of your traffic movements on site, and what are the controls to in place to keep people safe, and what else you can do. So bearing in mind traffic, vehicle collisions, items falling from vehicles are one of the biggest killers in agriculture still. It's very important to make sure that that risk has been adequately managed. Similarly to your DESIR risk assessment, the controls surrounding traffic are also an area that we see frequently come up on HSE inspections of sites. So a really important one to make sure you're thinking about. Next one down there we have is COSH, and maybe familiar for some people, it's the Control of Substances Hazardous to Health. And this is, again, another compliance-based set of documents around risk assessments. The safety risk assessments, you're looking at what the hazards are, what the risk is, and how to control that. But this is very much specific around substances, such as your sprays, could be chemicals you're putting into feed or water potentially, and anything else staff are handling from a housekeeping point of view, washing, fuels, so a wide range of substances that you might find in your business. Separately, we also look at construction design management regulations. So although we are rural business focused, from time to time, as you can imagine, we do come across construction projects that are being taken place on sites, and we do advise on those as a separate course. So that is both minor works and major works. Separately, we offer a contractor pre-approval, and this is quite an important step to any contractor management system in terms of gathering the relevant information from your contractors initially, to make sure that you're happy from their health and safety and competency point of view before you then engage them in any further activities. So as I've mentioned, we work with across the agricultural and rural businesses, farm estates, agribusiness, also sporting shoots, private houses, and as we mentioned, come across a number of other factors when you're working in those industries, such as cafes, farm parks, construction projects, etc. as well. So main purpose of the webinar, as well as letting you know more about what we do in terms of consultancy, was also to discuss how we move things forwards for a paperless health and safety system. So Safety Revolution has primarily been a paper-based system since its conception. As you may be familiar with, a number of other providers in terms of most things in health and safety seem to have a paper file, documentation, checklist, and paper gets everywhere, moves, needs completing, and that transfer backwards and forwards. What we aimed to do when we moved into paperless was to keep the robustness of our paper system, which enabled us to make sure that we still had the audit trail, the evidential trail, making sure that the review processes were still in place, but providing people with a number of other benefits that technology can now bring us. So I'll run through some of those things initially first through the slides, but hopefully what really will be of benefit for everybody will be to see the live demonstration of the system, and you can see how that can then really benefit from moving from paper onto paperless. So there's three key themes. One is obviously the core of the business and the consultancy, which is bespoke and detailed management system. It's important that every business has a health and safety management system comprising of your documentation, your checks, your audits, and everything, all of your inputs into that system. The next key benefit was radically reducing time input. We know from working within the business for a long time, Oliver and myself both as safety practitioners and along with our other consultants, that the main concern with a lot of people is how much time it takes to get that paperwork in place, to make sure that you're compliant, to make sure that the system's robust and that you can rely upon it. And that's really important. It's important to have a system that is that strong. And what we can do with paperless is we can actually increase engagement with the team, but also decrease the time input to make those reviews, to share the information, and to create that body of evidence, which leads into the third one, which is the easy sharing of information amongst the team to evidence compliance and monitor performance. Again, with paper, often been said to me before, oh, it's difficult to get the guys all sat in one place, reading documents, signing them off. They're too busy, or items of paper go missing. So what the system does is really create a way to be able to communicate better with the team, which particularly where there's remote workers or teams that are spread over several sites, can enable that sharing of information to be much easier, rather than trying to find that one time that everybody's together to sign off documents. You're actually able to get them out more readily, and also any updates as well can get shared more frequently. So within the paperless health and safety system, as a summary of what we're going to see on the live demonstration, we've got, so we're able to manage, review and share key documents. You'll all be familiar with a health and safety policy, which is a requirement to have safe working practices, risk assessments, and also action plans. So those are your actions, usually from an audit or a site walk round, that need to be put in place to be compliant. It helps to maintain legal compliance, which is always of a concern to a business. Are we doing enough to protect our workers? Will everybody go home safe? What happens if a HSE inspector happens to drop in one day? The system can be tailored and bespoke to your business, so the documentation that goes in there and how that's then implemented out to your team. It can accommodate existing documentation where needed, so there is upload functionality as well within the system. It's supported by consultancy. This isn't a software system by itself. We are a consultancy company at heart. Health and safety is the core of what we do and has been since our beginnings. This is a software system that helps support you and push health and safety forward. There is unlimited user access with our classic bespoke system. We have safety checklists in there, some which are already written that you can fully customize. You can also customize those from scratch as well. You can view reports of completed checklists. There's also an accident and near miss reporting function within the system. You can upload any site plans and maps and share them. We have what we like to describe as a virtual filing cabinet. This enables you to upload documents. You can actually lock those cabinets as well, so only certain people can access them. And it also has a link to Merit Ag Check, which hopefully people are using and out there using for machinery checks. So that's where you store your machinery, complete your daily checks, your maintenance logs, and your inspection information. So before I head into sharing my screen for the live demonstration of the system, it's just worth noting. So there is a dashboard to the system, and this is for for your laptop, it works on any browser, so you can get it on the browser for your iPad or your phone, your PC, etc. And this runs over any browser, so Chrome, Safari, Firefox, for example, and it's cloud-based. The app version, so you would download an app, and the app effectively enables the person with that device to have items shared with them. So it doesn't contain all of your health and safety system on your phone. It shows you exactly what that individual is required to read and sign off, can input accident near miss reports, or complete any checklists they've been sent. So it enables for the front end user on the app only to see what's needed to be seen. And that we often, again, it's been fed back to us many times. Obviously, there's quite a lot of noise around health and safety, and the way that people tend to take it in better is to have those bite-sized chunks, give them time to be able to read things, give them re-access to it. It's no longer a dusty file on a farm office shelf. This is something that people can engage with actively. And the feedback we've had so far is, people being astonished with the fact they've walked into their team's canteen area and they're on their phones discussing a safe working practice. So we're really, really positive about how this really engages the team and gets people interested in talking about safety. Yes, there's still some challenges, of course, but as soon as we start talking about it, we can start moving forwards. So what I will do now is just stop sharing my screen temporarily, and I'll bring up the live demonstration at this point. Great, so I'll just give that a second just so everybody, that loads up well enough for everybody. This is the first screen that you'll see when signing in to our classic bespoke system. So what I aim to do is when we show you that we're going to be showing you sort of the key safety areas where the key safety documentation is. We won't be showing you a detail of every single thing within the system. But of course, if anybody wishes to have further information, we'd be happy to speak with anybody at any time. So landing on the home page here, you can see that we've got some quick action buttons in the middle, and we'll work through these before, but they do enable you just to access certain areas quickly if you need to. You can also see who's been working. So this shows if there's been anybody logged into the system, what checks they've been making, and if they've got any outstanding actions on their to-do list. And we'll come to the to-do list in a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you into the health and safety file, so to speak, although being electronic. So this is all cloud-based. This doesn't take up any memory on your system. You can access it anywhere, anytime. So it's fully accessible. If we go into My Health and Wellbeing and we drop down into Health and Safety file. Now that's loaded, it's brought us up with the front page of our safety file. We're in a general department at the moment, so we can set up individual departments within the system. So if you have a gamekeeping team, a housekeeping team, the farm team, etc., you can actually separate their departments up. So again, working on the theme of making sure we're engaging with people, making sure the information they see, the information they're dealing with is relevant to them. So we're not switching them off with stuff that they don't deem as necessary for them as individuals. So at an initial glance, we can have a look at how many documents we've got in the system, what's requiring action, but also how much of our high priorities have been completed, and a breakdown of those documents. That quick view into documents that need review. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you down our contents page here and just go into the detailed sections for important documents. So in section 2 here, we have our high priority actions. So following on from an initial audit, what your consultant would do would be able to create you a high priority action plan. So this would list any findings of the audit as high priorities that may be considered, for example, a breach in health and safety that could maybe come through as a fee for intervention from the HSE if it was to be investigated, and so forth. So these are things really to put your focus on initially. With bearing in mind this is a demonstration account, so these are all in for the purpose of viewing as a demo. Rather than a sort of a paper list, which is fairly one-dimensional, within the software system and Paperless, we can actually increase the functionality of this high priority action. So what you can see here is we have an assign function and an action function. So if this, for example, a particular high priority action was a certain individual's responsibility, such as ensure employees complete medical questionnaires annually, you can actually assign that to a member of the team that's been invited to the system. What will happen then, and I'll show you this shortly, is they'll get a notification on their phone app to say that they've been given an action to carry out. Once it has been actioned, so either on the phone or live in the system, you can actually click to action that system. So from here, you can file drop photos, files, PDFs, all of your normal documents. You can add notes, and then you can also mark as actioned, mark as not applicable, and complete as done. So it's quite good, if you're working towards the completion of an action, you can actually update notes regularly until it's completed. And of course, like we said, you can assign it to an individual so that they get a notification to start working on that action. So rather than on a traditional paper system where you maybe just tick it off or sign it off or have to communicate via email with the individuals, it sends it straight to their app and enables them to mark it off, but also upload evidence that it has been completed. Once those have been completed, I'll just drop back into the high priority actions. They move on to a completed actions list. So you'll always have a record of what has been carried out, who's undertaken it, and what evidence was uploaded in terms of a document or photo or note to say that it was completed. You'll also see an origin button here and an edit button. So for example, if you conduct any in-house safety checks and you come up with a high priority action, you can edit this and add that into the system as well and assign it to another individual. What I'll do now is I'll just take you down into the safe working practices section. Again, another key document to your safety management system. Again, you can see a list of all of your safe working practices within the safety system. And again, they'll have a status within here as well. So your draft ones are those that are still undertaking review, and that's a purposeful stage, is to make sure that those documents are specific, they've been checked with people, and you're happy with any of the changes to the content. You'll see that we have some live ones, so those ones have been reviewed and those are ready for sign off, which I'll show you in a moment. And you'll also see within the system an SRL review. And that's if you've made any changes or you've written a new safe working practice, you can actually send it to your safety consultant through the system for their oversight. So if I just click into quad bikes and ATVs, you'll see it's as simple as it brings up the file for that document. It can show you who it's been shared with, and if they have actioned it by reading it and signing it off or not. It then also gives you some handy buttons to say share again, nudge, or actually it's no longer required for that individual, and any versioning history below. So if I go into this draft, you'll see the full document and you can read it at this point. You can also edit it as simply as going to here and using it similar to a Word document by removing or adding words, taking bits out, adding more information in if it's anything specific, names, for example, or particular locations. You can review that at any time. Once you're happy with it, you've got the option here to send to the manager, so that sends it to the manager of that department, the owner of the safety file, and they can sign it off to put it live. The request document review sends it to your safety consultant for their oversight. Or if it's no longer applicable, you can archive it. If I then take you into a live safe working practice, such as shoot trailer procedure, we can then also see the share functionality. So it's really important from a safety perspective that you're engaging with your team. The team have been given information, instruction, training and supervision for the tasks they undertake. One way to help with that is for safe working practice to be shared with them and to evidence that those have been shared by the individuals reading and signing them. So you'll see here that there is a share option. You can click that and you can share it with anybody that has been added to that department in that for that safety file, or alternatively you can click a share with all. Again, I'll show you in the app itself. That will then come through to the individual's phone app. They'll get a push notification. They can go into their phone app, they can read the document, sign it off, and that will enable you'll be then able to see that back in the dashboard that that's been signed off by the individual. Okay, so moving then on to risk assessments, similar in concept. You get presented with your full list of risk assessments in the system. They have a draft and a live versioning, and they're fully editable. So you can click into the risk assessment. Again, you've got all of the document sharing and the versioning history. Click into the draft and you can see your risk assessment here, containing all of the key elements of a risk assessment, what it is, what the activity is, who's going to be affected by it, the hazards associated with the activity, the risk rating, actions that you're already taken, and further actions possible. And to edit these, again, really simple, edit button. That takes you to edit any of the boxes in the system. So you can see you can edit all of these functions here, change any of the hazards or add any more in. set your risk rating, and then it takes you to your actions lists. And to say that you're completing any of these further actions, it's as simple as saying markers actioned, moving it across, and the system will automatically transfer it into your actions already taken to reduce the risk box. You also have the functionality here to be able to add any of your own action points as well. You click finish, the changes will be made. As you can see, we've added in the extra action here, and you can send to manager for sign off or request document review again from Safety Revolution. So it's really simple to be able to change these documents. So when we're talking about time saving, that's, you know, the system enables you to make changes very, very quickly. If there's a reason to review the risk assessment, you can actually do that quickly, and you can then get that back into live, back into to a compliant point of view in a matter of minutes, without any loss of versioning, any loss of evidence to take that forwards. The next section, section 8, is our health and safety policy. So as part of our consultancy service, we would a health and safety policy, both in terms of the statement here and also the detailed policy, is part of what we would provide you with. And if we can go into here again, you can see that it's a simple to read document. This is already live and it's been signed off, so you can sign this off each year, and then you can share it with your individuals in your team. Again, they can read it and sign it off ready, so that they've read it and signed it, they understand what's expected of them and what the business is aiming to do. There's also important sections around in employee documentation, where you can send inductions out, so your induction form, your medical questionnaires, and also your PPE record. So all of those can be accessed and signed off from the phone application. You then have a record of who has completed it, who is in progress, and again, you've got handy buttons to be able to nudge them or move them around. The last main section of that those big files is also your health and safety meeting minutes. So for each of our meetings with you, we would produce a set of minutes with any actions on, a record of those conversations and actions out of those minutes, and those would be filed and found there. But of course, you can also record any of your own internal meetings so that you have a record of them. Those are the key sections in the health and safety file of the system. What I'm going to do now is just show you in regards to being able to find some documents. So for example, if you needed to understand who, I'm going to use my name here, you can go into the personnel file on the system and you can see all documents that have been shared with that individual, any inductions they've completed, any medical questionnaires, and you can actually see the status of those. So I haven't signed any of my documents off, and you can see that here. That's really important. Anybody that's been in a situation where there's been an accident or an investigation, what's been shared with that individual and its relevance always comes up as evidence. So it's useful to be able to say, actually, with that individual, we shared all of these documents, they've read and signed them all, and actually it's really easy for you to find everything in the system quickly for that individual. It's also worth noting at this point, any of the documents that you've seen as we've been going through, you can download those and have a paper copy if you wish, or if somebody's requested something, you can actually download those and of course send them out the system via that way as well. We know now with contractor management systems, there's lots of requests for information, risk assessments, safe working practices. So actually you can quickly get those out and send them on to your contacts. I'm just going to take you into the accident and incident reporting section. So here, from the system, from the dashboard side that we're in, you can add new accident reports and new near-miss reports. And these take you through a series of predefined questions to then be able to create that report. So you'll see here, there's predefined sections. So it makes sure that all of your reports are universal. It also ensures any mandatory fields are completed and categorized as appropriate. As managers within the system, you'll also get a notification if something is reported, so you can go in and have a look at it. Once the accident has been reported, again, you can go into it. So for example, if there's any further action, and you can upload documents, request reviews, and update any accident reporting associated with it as well. In terms of good safety practice, the reporting of near misses is really important, and there's also a section in here of predefined fields to be able to see that. The last thing I want to show you on the dashboard is the checklist section. If I go into here, and this is where you can use either some template checklists that are preloaded into the system, or create your own custom checklist. So if you have a particular walk round that you do every day or once a week, you can add that in yourself. If I just take you to a template checklist for now, and for example, use the asbestos management template, create the checklist, and you can see all of the predefined questions in here, whether they're switched on or off. You can edit the content of those, you can remove them, so you can set your checklist as you wish based on that. And again, it's fully customizable, so if you have something additional that you want to check specific to your site, you can add that in. You can duplicate checklists. So for example, if you have a particular check for one site, you don't want to re-edit that checklist again for another, it's only a minor change, you can duplicate it and save it. I'm going to save this checklist, and then it takes you to a scheduling system. The scheduling functionality, again, in terms of saving time and making sure things are actioned, you can set a repeat functionality. So how many days, weeks, months, annually, for how long, and you can schedule it for a particular day or time as well. You can schedule it for a full department, so everybody to complete, or an individual to complete. Let's schedule this for tomorrow. Schedule check. There we go, keep that filled. And you'll see that my checklist has now appeared here. So what I'll do is I'll quickly just stop my screen share and bring you onto the phone app and just show you where all of those documents have now gone and where your team would then see those documents that are shared. So hopefully everybody can now see my phone screen. When you first go into the app, you're presented on your home screen. and this will get you started. So it will show you any scheduled checklist you have and any to do. So I have a health and safety policy statement to sign off, a safe working practice, and a couple of safe working practices there. So for example, if I go to sign off the health and safety policy, which works exactly the same for the safe working practices, I can read it, I can mark it as read, and I can put a signature in. That'll submit it back to the dashboard. So if I was to go back on the dashboard now, you'll see my signature against that document. It will time and date stamp that as well. Within the health and wellbeing system section, I can report any accidents from my phone, and again it takes me through the defined fields to do that, so the information you get back on your dashboard as a manager is clear and concise and you can work with it. Again, I can report any near misses, and I can see my to-do list, anything I've actioned, and also an emergency contacts list. The emergency contacts list can be set from your dashboard, and it just goes to help anybody in the emergency. They can find, for example, who to call if they contact an overhead power line, if there's an electrical problem or a gas problem, and what to do in emergency. So it's a really helpful tool for users. Any checklist schedule will show up in our checklist section. And again, I'm left with a number. So here's the safe working practice. So again, exactly the same as the policy. Load, you can work through the pages. You can mark as read. Lets you know it's been submitted, and you'll see my notifications coming up there. Very good. So that brings us to the end of the live demonstration of the system. So just as a quick recap, we're able to, you can use it on any device, as you can see here. You can invite your team members. It has all of your safety documentation within it. And as well as from the compliance and evidential point of view, it's really important in terms of keeping people engaged, getting information out to them, sharing information, and opening that conversation around safety. Thank you very much. I'll now move on to questions. So firstly, Oliver, if you're still there, what's the benefit of moving onto paperless from paper?
Absolutely. I would say the principal benefit is twofold. It's the amount of time that is saved with a paperless system versus a hard copy system, and the ability to share it amongst the team. So if you make any changes to policies or procedures, they're much more easily circulated amongst the team. And then, of course, the team can respond quickly and easily wherever they are. It's interactive. And of course, from that, logically, the business, the directors, the trustees, or senior management have a much better quality body of evidence as to what they have done, so that hopefully it doesn't occur, but if they are obliged to evidence what they've been doing or what the estate, the business has been doing, it's much more easily done. I think the important thing also to flag is that this software is a component of a system. It's not saying, here's some software, have a go, good luck. That software has to be supported by quality consultancy advice based on people that understand the farm or estate environment. And that's the key to good safety management, is to contextualize it You're not running a factory where there is a nice roof over the top, lighting, the temperature's controlled. You're dealing with a dynamic outdoor environment where everything is changing all the time, and where all of the things you do are done slightly differently throughout the year, through the seasons, and through the environmental conditions that you encounter.
Great, thank you. Next question then. How does the consultancy fit in alongside the software? Can you just have software?
You can just have software, absolutely. And the software is designed so that if you have existing documents from other safety consultants, you can upload those and you can manage those documents in the system. So that's absolutely the case. You can just have the software. In our case, as a business, we are consultants first and software providers second. We are not a software business. I think that's an important distinction to make, in the sense that the delivery of this for a farm or estate from us is based on making sure it fits within a farm and estate environment. It's not a generic software platform. It's built specifically for the estate and farm market.
Great, thank you. I've got another question here. If there was an accident, does the evidence in the system go some way in mitigating that?
Yes is the short answer. The extent to which it mitigates depends on the quality of the information that you have and how much you have adapted it, refined it to fit your particular circumstances. But the short answer is yes. I mean, it is a glass half full situation. Every piece of information that you have is a step in the right direction. Over the 20 years that we've been doing this, I would say there's nobody that I've ever seen who's got the perfect system. Perfection in safety terms is nearly impossible to achieve. So truthfully, you will have gaps. It's not a question of not having any gaps. It's a question of being able to show that you've done as much as you can to identify the gaps and to plug them. And that's what the HSE are looking for. They don't expect to find perfection. And indeed, they would never be able to build a case around perfection. They want to show that to see that you've tried, you've made a reasonable effort so far as you reasonably can, and you can evidence it. The contextualization is key. There's no one size fits all does not work, particularly in a farm or estate environment. And I would say, as an aside, in this forum is incredibly helpful for discussing what we're doing today. If anybody wants to talk about their particular circumstances, I'm more than happy to do that, one-to-one, either telephone, video, or come and see anybody and discuss their particular requirements. But the key point is that it's the quality of the body of evidence that determines the extent to which you can defend yourself.
Brilliant, thank you. There's another question come through in terms of, is there any form of verification for checklist items being completed, such as a GPS location option to attach a photo, scanner, RFID tag, etc.? Something to prove a person was checking on the site and not completing them from home.
Well, you may want to add to this, Mia, but we are looking at geolocation with the checklists at the moment, but primarily the checklists are very adaptable in the sense that they can be, and the tracking of those checklists and the completion of them is very easy to do. So in terms of pure compliance, they are very strong. When you move into the territory of locations as well, that is capability that we have in other software that we produce for, say, the shooting community, to track locations of things. So it is technically doable, and it is something that we are looking at the moment.
Yep, I would agree with that. We're always, I think it's worth also stating that the software is always being developed on the feedback of users, and that's really important to us. It's making sure that the functionality is there, it's readily usable, and that the feedback we get effectively drives our development of that. So yeah, we're looking at that actively. One more, I think we've got time for one more question then. And this one's in terms of documentation, what's the most important piece of documentation for a system?
That's very easy. The most important piece of documentation is the health and safety policy statement. It's the one thing that absolutely must be there and must have been read and acknowledged, basically signed off by every member of the team. It's important not just because it's a statutory legal requirement if you have or more staff to have one, but it's so important because it evidences the fact that you have communicated the importance of safety to your team, and it is the cornerstone. From your policy, everything else should move out. So the development of procedures and risk assessments should be based on the policy that you as a business have determined. And the key point to flag there, if I may, is that policy should be, again, adapted to the circumstances. So, for example, a generic shoot policy or a generic lone working policy is not as helpful as one that has been adapted to suit the way that you shoot, the type of lone working you do, for example, and how you do that. And the good news is that you can actually develop more or easier working policies if you can show that you've done it based on making a proper assessment. So you don't need to tie yourself up in knots. Having a good, simple policy that doesn't that commits you to what you can reasonably do, and make sure equally that you're not writing things in that you can't do, because that's creating hostages to fortune. So a good, simple policy, plain English, that says what you do is the key.
Great, thank you. And we're just drawing to a close now. I've noted there's a couple of questions come through in terms to contact details. They'll be up in just a moment for everybody that wishes to give us a call or email or find our website. And also there's some questions around cost of services. So again, we'd be happy to chat with anybody. Please get in contact. I'll move the slides onto our contact page now.
If I may just add to that, our approach to follow up is very much one-to-one, and it is obviously no obligation. So, we normally have a chat with people about their specific requirements. Pricing is, there isn't a sort of set price. It's based on the scale of your operations, and it is based normally on the number of people and the breadth of activities. So that's what we look at. We don't look at acreage, for example. It's really, how many different centres of operation, how many departments, for example, do you have, and critically, how many people. That's full-time, part-time, and casual. And it's worth just flagging, if I may, that when you're looking at numbers of people, the magic number of 5 in a business, when you're working out whether you should have a documented policy at 5, the HSE expects you to take into account directors, partners, trustees, and part-time or casual staff when you're making that head count. So if you've got a gardener, for example, or harvest casuals going through the books, the HSE would count those within the 5.
Great. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. We very much look forward to chatting with anybody that wishes to speak with us further, or if you'd like to see any more of the software in detail, we'd be happy to show that as well.
Yes, thank you very much, everybody, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Goodbye.